the headliner of you can buy a Ford on Amazon is true. And that is where we start.
Because if I'm a Ford dealer listening to this podcast right now, I'm either freaking excited or I'm scared. And I want to be excited.
I got my F-150, 2-day shipping, blah, blah, blah. It's all at my house, and it's a pretty big purchase.
How does that even work through Amazon and how they're leveraging it? One of the things we said is like, who's going to be the one to really take this to the next level with buying things digitally and making it easier for customers? And if anybody sees what Amazon's been doing over the past 30 years.
With that in mind, whichever Ford dealer has the best listing, has the best options for how they're going to finance and do the F&I products, and has the clearest reviews on this is going to win.
From 2015 to 2024, 12 million vehicles have been recalled for defects that prevent airbags from deploying in a crash. A lot of vehicles. And keep in mind, out of all of those, there are still, Philip, 2.6 million of those vehicles that have not been repaired yet. You know, it's always a pleasure when we can hop on and get right into it. So today we're talking about two major but very different developments in the automotive world. The first is new ways that we're going to be able to buy cars online that we're about to get into. And then we're going to talk about some old safety problems that still haven't gotten fixed. So with that, I feel like we should dive into our first topic, which you would have been really excited about. And when this first came out, you messaged me immediately. You're like, we got to talk about it. So Philip, why don't you set the stage and let everybody know what's been going on between Ford and Amazon?
All right. So this is pretty big. Like everybody's on Amazon. I got 5 million packages coming to my house. I don't even know what's being ordered to my house, right? So one of the really interesting things here is with all of that kind of online shopping where you can go on in the middle of the night and you can buy a new balance board, you can buy a new bike, you can get it all the next day, blah, blah, blah. The question became, what if you could do that with your car? And so it's a much bigger purchase. It's kind of scary. It's like, okay, do I want 2-day shipping on a vehicle? And a lot of people were kind of like, no, it's too big of a purchase. But then Kia and Hyundai, they kind of took a flyer on looking into it and working with Amazon to see if they could bring their new cars to Amazon and sell them. And so that was in pilot and then kind of got through the flow. And I think what was discovered is maybe people are open to this online buying. You think Carvana, you think people go into Edmunds, people go into all these different websites to do their car buying experience. What if we could figure out how to capitalize on that and make it super quick? And so the newest development of this is Ford has partnered with Amazon to sell CPO vehicles on Amazon.com. So I think there's a lot of pieces to unpack with that, because the first thing is the shock and awe, where you're like, what? All the Fords are going to be sold via the website Amazon. That's where I'm going to buy all my Fords. So we're going to debunk that. We're going to talk through those pieces. But the headliner of you can buy a Ford on Amazon is true. And that is where we start. That is the like, blow your mind open. I got my F-150, 2-day shipping, blah, blah, blah. It's all at my house. And it's a pretty big purchase. So that is, get it off my chest, the scary thing. I said the scary thing that has me freaking out. And I want to talk about kind of what it means for a consumer, what it means for a dealer, what it means for Amazon, and what kind of vehicles you can actually buy.
Okay, well, let's get into it because it sounds like we have a jam-packed episode and I'm excited. I've never bought a Ford. I think you have owned a Ford in the past, right? Have you ever owned a Ford?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never owned one. I do own some Ford stock. So I am excited if this will help that out. And I'm curious from a consumer standpoint, what is Ford doing to get the word out there? I saw there was some publications where this was discussed in, but are they doing anything in particular to kind of get the news out?
I think that what you're going to see is if you look on Ford website, if you look on Business Insider, if you follow any news, it's a naturally occurring story because it's so big. So I don't know in a traditional sense where it would need to be a commercial where The Rock or Mike Rowe is on is like, buy your new Ford on Amazon. I don't know if that's necessary. That also is a terrible micro impression, but you can just see it everywhere you go. CNN, Fox, any of your news, it's like this big thing. And it has everybody naturally hooked. So that's how the word has really gotten out there. That's how I found out about it. We saw it on LinkedIn. And I think it's just naturally occurring that people are able to see this and then they want to go and check it. And then when you go to an Amazon website, when it's fully up and functioning and running, you'll be able to just go on there and see the vehicle. And that is something that Ford wants to capitalize on. When you think about selling online, you pay a digital retailer to go out and market your stuff. You might be doing Google SEO, where you're going on and making sure that your ads are popping up at the top of the page. Then you're paying lead providers to send you information. Think Auto Trader, Edmunds, whatever. They list your car, and then somebody goes and clicks on it, and it shows up as a lead to your dealer. You got to pick up the phone and call them. But Amazon, everybody's on it. Like I said, 3 a.m., you're on there in the middle of the night. If it just pops up as an ad on there, boom, you got exposure to everybody. And you didn't have to pay any extra. I'm not sure how much Ford is paying Amazon for that, but you don't have to pay any extra for that specific link or a specific vehicle to pop up if it's in the Amazon ecosphere. And then you can see all of the inventory that you want to post. So very quickly, you think about how easy it is to find stuff. If Amazon's going to make a buck off of it, they're going to put it in front of you, and their algorithm is going to say, Danielle is in the market for a 1995 Ford Taurus show, SHO. That is what she wants. She's going to put it in front of you. There's one that's out there. Okay. So Amazon is going to do a lot of the legwork there. Ford is going to provide the vehicles, and it will just naturally occur that people will see it and start purchasing.
I love that. I'm also confused, and I feel like you may know this because you've been diving into this a little bit deeper. Since we mentioned that Ford is putting their cars, their pre-owned vehicles on Amazon, are they partnering with Ford dealerships across the country to source those vehicles? Are they getting them
Yes.
directly from the tier one side? Like, what is happening there? Because if I'm a Ford dealer listening to this podcast right now, I'm either freaking excited or I'm scared, and I want to be excited. But help me understand, Philip. Should I be excited or scared if I'm a Ford dealer?
So I think excited. That's what I'm going to have as your number one. It seems scary when you hear about it because you're thinking, is the OEM now taking all of their new vehicles, giving them to Amazon to sell, and am I getting cut out of this equation as a dealer? And the good news is the answer is no. What's happening is they're using CPO vehicles only, so certified pre-owned. So that vehicle inventory that that dealer owns is now going to be able to be posted on Amazon. They're still going to go through the same process as it's laid out right now. You'll still have to go into a dealership to finish the purchase. You'll still have to make sure you buy your F&I products from that dealer. And the dealer, if you're a really savvy one, you are able to find your inventory that you want to move. So if it's a little bit older age, you've had it as a TPO on your lot for a while, and maybe it's the wrong color, you can put it in front of these millions of people who might want a bright red F-150 Lightning. That could be the target audience that you weren't reaching in your region before. So nationwide exposure to your vehicles. You're not being cut out by the two large brands here. You're still being incorporated. And if you're smart about how you use it, you can get the specific vehicles that you want out there to a bunch more people. If you think about it, if you listen to any of our previous episodes, we had the used car manager from Audi Jacks on there talking about how to use Facebook to influence the way people buy and to get some of his vehicles to a wider audience. Think that same kind of permutation for this relationship between Ford and Amazon.
I love that. This is also making me think about all the other additional things because I have bought several vehicles online before using platforms like Carvana and CarMax. And if I were to buy a vehicle A to Z through Amazon, I'm thinking about, okay, if I'm buying the CPO Ford, I'm going through the checkout process. Who is serving me my F&I? Who is serving me my different add-ons and things? Is that partnering through these dealerships that it's coming through? Is Amazon white labeling that through other third party? Like, I'm just so intrigued because we've seen other, pioneers in the space do this right. And I'm just wondering, is Amazon leveraging those, or are they leveraging the dealers' own F&I companies, warranties, etc.?
So everything that I've seen points to is the dealers, F&I, warranties, companies, et cetera. It's all dealer based. It may be in a virtual platform, so you may be able to see all of your products listed there, and then maybe just pick up the phone and call the dealers. I think the details are still rolling out for this partnership, but they are not cutting out that middleman, that F&I guy who's sitting in the back office. They're still going to get exposure to be able to sell those products. The thing that is curious to think about is when it's a CPO, you already have a lot of warranties wrapped up in these. So there may not be as much to sell to the customer. But in the cycle of buying a car, the cool thing is you could start at the top. Oh, I saw that bright red F-150 Lightning that I really wanted. It's at the dealer. I go through, I put my lead in, I get on the phone with the F&I guy, and he's like, well, actually, we have a blue one too. It's not a CPO, but it'll save you $7,000. Up to you. Well, now you got a customer who saw you on Amazon. They may not have purchased that one vehicle, but they got exposure to the rest of your inventory and you're able to sell a different car. So I think it's really cool that they're not cutting out the dealer, which is something for years people were afraid of. Everybody's going to go to this Tesla model where all you have is a person in a showroom who's just holding an iPad and making sure that you know what you're buying versus somebody who's selling that process, going through F&I, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's still able to take place for the dealership. They're able to still get that customer and possibly selling something different. So it's nice, in my opinion, that they're not just like, we don't need the dealers anymore, get them out of here. They're still keeping that partnership alive.
I like that. And, like Ford really isn't the pioneer in this space. And maybe they're the first ones to do it from a CPO standpoint, but I believe Hyundai was the one to first go directly through Amazon, but that was actually for new vehicles. And they were like direct to consumer, really cutting out the dealer body. So I know the
Yeah.
dealers were happy with Hyundai when they did that. But for this scenario, let's take it back for 2 seconds. Let's say that this customer is on their phone right now. They're looking at a
Mhm.
used Ford F-150. They are selecting it. They're wanting to add it to their cart. At what point in this process is that customer being served different loan options? Where are they getting their loan from? Do they get to pick? Is the dealer kind of assuming the sale with certain lenders that they want to push? And I feel like that's an area that could get really fun, especially for a company like us, to see if we could get into that flow and really
Yeah.
capitalize with a lot more Ford dealers. But I'm curious, and I don't know this because I need to kind of play with it myself. How does that even work through Amazon and how they're leveraging it? Do you have any ideas, Philip?
I what I do know is, and I don't have all of the answers, right? I will eventually, but I think that they have to plan what their F&I process is going to look like so it's clean so that the dealer can go through that quickly. Video, digital menus, e-contracting, and they need to have those options for how they purchase available quickly. Right now, we don't have the details on specifically how they will provide loans. I don't believe that Amazon is doing the specific financing, but that could change. And with all of that in mind, you need to get out ahead of it and be prepared for it. So what does that mean exactly for dealers? You're going to get your inventory up and ready. You're going to really pay attention to your CPO so that it's qualified. Think about your Amazon customer. So your Amazon customer is not going to the website to think, oh, I want to look through 78 different options. I want to read 3 million reviews, and then I want to
Nope.
sit and think about it for a week. Your Amazon is like, I want the top 5 reviews. I want it summarized by AI. I want to know if this is a good purchase and if I should buy this version or that version of whatever it is. Say it's a cooking pan, right? There are 10,000 options. I want to know which one is the best. And I want somebody to tell me, I want it force fed to me all of the pertinent information. With that in mind, whichever Ford dealer has the best listing, has the best options for how they're going to finance and do the F&I products, and has the clearest reviews on this is going to win. Because the thing that the dealers have to adapt to is that Amazon purchasing mentality. And I should bring in my wife for this because she loves to purchase from Amazon all hours of the day and night, and she's very quick with it. So, what allows her to move quickly, to be agile when she's going through that process, and how can we apply that to the car dealer? I will be so curious to see if Amazon rolls out their own financing platform. Because, right now, sometimes you go to Amazon and you buy a big ticket item and it's like, pay now $3 million for that specific speaker set, or go through and pay 472 different payments of $1 million for that speaker set. So they have that kind of, is it a firm or I don't know the name of that lending partner that they have right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So will they have something like that for this, or is the vehicle too big, right? That's where it's going to be really interesting and who Amazon decides to partner with to do these digital loans. So you think about, I know you mentioned kind of how it affects somebody like us, like Upstart. Well, we have the ability to be nimble and move quickly and provide loans and do the soft pull like we've talked about. So it could be something interesting to think about a partner like that who finances the cars for these people. So I don't know where it's going to go, right? I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, but it's pretty cool to see that the future of car buying is going this way. And the first dealer that's able to adapt to this without being scared is going to be the big winner, in my opinion.
I'm with you, Philip. I totally think that they would be a huge winner if they learn to adapt to this. And maybe instead of needing the OEM, or let me ask you this before I get into my other point. If a dealership decided, hey, I see what Ford and Amazon are doing. Let's say I'm a Chevy dealership and I got a big inventory and I'm trying to move some used pre-owned CPO units myself. Can I list my inventory on Amazon? I mean, I'm sure they have the infrastructure in place now. Maybe more dealerships could do this.
Yeah, I think it's something that other OEMs will have to take note of, right? If this goes gangbusters, not only do are other dealers going to be like, yeah, I want to do it, but then OEMs are going to have to change their whole model for how they're listing things and what they pay, co-opable dollars for and all of that, because maybe Amazon is the move. Maybe that's the place to go. And it's
Yeah.
it will cause FOMO. And what you think about when it comes to OEMs is the dealer body will apply pressure for what's going to help them make money to the OEM. And once you get enough of these dealers that say, hey, I need this, I need that, I need to be able to do this, it changes the money to the OEM. It's the same kind of pressure
Mhm.
ecosystem for any other product that you would purchase. If the buyer and the seller of that product are saying, we want it this way, then the producer says, okay, I've got to adapt. So if you have Ford and then everybody from Chevy or Stellantis has FOMO, then they're like, oh, get me in there. That is going to push them in a direction. The other curious thought for this is incorporated into all of this FOMO. You have all of these little dealers. So they're not all Auto Nation. It's not all these huge players. You have some mom and pop dealers who really take care of their customers, sell some cars, but this allows them access to a nationwide audience. And in
Are we talking
today's changing,
franchise or indies?
we're talking franchise, right? So you
Okay.
still have like some smaller OEM franchise points. Maybe they're in a rural area. Maybe they're in a, just like they have their one dealership that does really well, but they aren't seeing the nationwide audience. Well, with Amazon, now you're getting to see everybody. So instantly, your 30 car a month Ford dealer goes to 60 cars a month because people are trying to buy it across the country. But what does that mean for the dealer? That means, oh, my pictures better be tight. My CPOs that I have better be really good. I better have a way to digitally sign up a customer in case they need to buy, and I need a shipping service to go across the country. But if you iron out that, now you're making twice the money without double the investment in doing so. So, really big opportunity for those dealers to focus on.
Totally. I'm excited for this move and what that's going to change for the industry. As we were kind of doing our predictions of what's to come in 2026, one of the things we said is like, who's going to be the one to really take this to the next level with buying things digitally and making it easier for customers? And if anybody sees what Amazon's been doing over the past 30 years, they've just always been progressive and always been moving things forward. Let's see how Amazon and Ford are going to handle the test drive, because there is still a handful of people who find that to be extremely important. Me, not so much. So how Carvana did it is when you purchase from them, they give you 7 days to essentially test drive the vehicle, take it all over the place. It's 7 days and up to 300 miles. So if Ford Amazon does something similar, I think that that would satisfy that test drive need for the person to feel really good about that vehicle. And with it being a CPO, I think it is necessary versus I never really test drove vehicles in the past. If I was like leasing a car and getting something new, I was like, oh, I just trusted it. But there's some people who really care about how it moves and drives and how it feels, especially with the CPO. So let's see if they do something similar to the Carvana, the 7 days, 300 miles.
That's going to be interesting because the shipping is what's going to be really bad, right? If I'm in Alabama and I'm that smaller dealer and I'm selling to somebody in Washington State, well, now I've got to ship it across the country, which can be probably $2,000. It gets there, then they might want to ship it back because they don't like it. I think that's why we went with the CPO angle for Ford. Is that's a guaranteed vehicle, so it's been inspected by a professional. They give you an extended warranty right off the jump, and you can guarantee that things aren't going to be wrong with it. Versus buying a traditional used car where you're like anything could happen, right? If I'm driving down the street on the way to high school and I see a really cool Jeep Cherokee and I'm like, yeah, let me put an offer in on that. Somebody has that for sale sign. That's a big risk. CPO, not as much of a big risk. But before we pivot, I want to talk about the other risks that could exist for dealers. So you think about
Okay.
this, if you get too heavy into any one lead generation, what is it? You're gonna not pay as much attention to your other lead sources, and so you want to be
Yeah.
really careful. You want to balance it because you can't put all your eggs in that one basket. In addition to that, now you're pressured to Amazon level customer service, and I can tell you, as somebody who loves to return stuff, right? Like I will test it out, and if I don't like it, like before I came upstairs to do this podcast, I called and I said your chicken wings are whack, and they're sending me a coupon for new ones, right? Like I'm just petty like that. Okay, I'm just saying they were very friendly. They gave me a new bag. I can buy whatever product I want. Shout out to you. But
We're not
if
sleeping.
you have somebody like me and I'm expecting to be able to return that to Kohl's, right? I'm going to take my F-150 back to Kohl's. You're going to box it up and ship it back to Amazon because I didn't like it. What does that mean for that dealer? What do they do with it? Be very careful in particular about the guidelines that you have for your vehicle purchase, what Amazon is going to require you to provide, what you have to do for a return policy, right? And does it add too much strain to your process to use? So it all seems good. There's a lot of really good stuff based on what we know now. But as you go forward, just be aware and think through that process that you have now with your Amazon purchases. Is that something you're willing to be on the other side of? What is really also cool, and I'm excited about this, is as a consumer, if somebody buys that F-150 Lightning and then they return it, most of those products don't make it all the way back to Amazon to resell. They usually go to these like big warehouses where they sit, they get a discount, they bundle it and sell it out to somebody else. So is there going to be a semi-auctioneering type area where these cars that people didn't like to come back go to, where then Philip can go and buy another whatever he wants? That is something I'm also curious about, because that could really be beneficial to the consumer if it exists. But that's down the line. I'm sure we will have another episode about that. And it's like, right now, it's just super cool and exciting for people to think about a new way to buy a car, to buy it faster, to buy it easier, and still incorporate the dealer.
Totally. I feel like there's a lot of kinks that they're going to have to work out. It, like you said, it sounds great, sounds amazing, but with any new process and new rollout, there's going to be things that they didn't consider and that they didn't look into. But speaking of some kinks, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of switch gears and get into our next segment, where we're going to be getting into recalls. So anybody who's been listening to our podcast for the past year or so, you may have experienced recalls of your own. And just to name some stats, words talk, numbers scream. So here's some stats to kind of get you thinking about these recalls and what's been going on. So from 2015 to 2024, 12 million vehicles have been recalled for defects that prevent airbags from deploying in a crash. A lot. It's a lot of vehicles. Now keep in mind, out of all of those, there are still, Philip, 2.6 million of those vehicles that have not been repaired yet. These are people sitting on the sidelines who can't use their vehicle. Hopefully, these dealers have provided them with a alternative or have completely fixed it. But more times than not, you're out of luck. You don't have a car and you're on the sidelines waiting for your car to be repaired. Now, I know you and I both have had experiences with this and with recalls, and it's a sore subject, but I figured it'd be a perfect time to talk about it, because this popped up on LinkedIn and I felt like it's a good opportunity for us to get into recalls and what these OEMs need to do to fix it. So Philip, over to you. Tell us your most recent recall story.
All right. So we all know that I drive a Pacifica, right? Like, that's, if you listen to this podcast, you know it. It's said. Pacificas are also a very large part of rental fleets. So a lot of times you'll go to a national enterprise and you'll see a van. You'll be like, oh, sweet minivan, I want to get into that thing. And then you'll get in it, drive it off the lot. You're the coolest guy. I get it. But there's been a recent shortage because the 22 through 25 model years have been recalled for airbags that did not deploy, the same thing that you're talking about. So at my local enterprise, when I go up there to rent a car to travel for work, they have a back lot full of Pacificas, and I will walk in and they'll be like, we're out of cars. You're like, but wait, I see 15 cars there. And they say, those are all under recall. So legally, they cannot operate them, even if they're not going to have the malfunction. And fortunately, my Pacifica, it's old enough where it's not falling into that. But all of the new ones, including the 25, are still there. 250,000 vehicles can't be driven safely because these airbags will deploy. And that is a big issue. So that kind of recall happens and it's a problem. When I had my Ram, the recall happened where there were some issues with the front electrical system and you had to bring it in and have the system flash. That's not a huge deal. They can come in a day, flash your computer, right? And when I say flash computer, let me clarify. They refresh the computer, they do an over-the-air update, and that changes the way that system works and functions, just like a new Windows update or a new Mac update. But when it's something physical, like an airbag, you actually have to remove that system and replace it because it might not just be computer related. So it's a much deeper repair. You stack that up with, okay, this is a 10-minute fix versus a 4-day fix times 250,000 vehicles, times the mailers that have to go out to let people know, times the fleet vehicles that you have that exist. It gets out of control. So then you're waiting months and months and months to get your car fixed, all while driving around thinking, please don't hit me, because I may not be protected. And they're not going to have a backlog of vehicles because it's 4 years of cars that are under this recall. So I can't even go in and be like, oh, just give me another Pacifica, because now you would have sold the ones that work. All you have on your lot are ones that don't. You're waiting for the parts to come in to replace it. You can't drive these cars. And it really screws the customer. And that's what we're really running into. And it just keeps happening. Part of it is, my 1970 Roadrunner, which is a Plymouth, if you don't know, you're not going to get a recall on an airbag because we didn't have no airbags, right? But that also means when you get into a crash, it's the last thing you did on this earth. Okay. So there's like a balance of technology and safety that we have. And then what does it do when something like this fails? So I personally err on the side of I prefer to have airbags, right? And if that's a recall that exists, it's an inconvenience for a time. But this inconvenience is getting really out of control, partially because of the global infrastructure of how we produce a vehicle. Like, even though it says made in America or made in Canada, it could have gotten parts from China, it could have gotten parts from South America, it might have produced in Mexico. The wheels might have come from a different place. Now, if I want to get it replaced, I've got to go back to those and ship them back in through my supply chain. And those places have already moved on from the 2022 model year to produce your 2026 model year. Now they got to go back, retool, get a new airbag that comes in and fits into that system. And you can't halfway produce it because it's such a vital system in the vehicle. You think NHTSA safety ratings, you think when they do crash tests, all of this stuff, then the government can get involved and say, pull those cars off the road. If we see them, the OEM has to pay. Then customers are suing the OEM for dollars that they've lost. They're having to pay huge bucks to pay out of these loans that they have somebody in for a vehicle they cannot drive. So it's out of control very quickly.
Yikes. As you were speaking, it was just making me think of all the money down the drain that, these rental car companies can't rent these vehicles out. These OEMs have all these vehicles that are under recall that they can't sell. They don't want to repair them.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
very solution oriented. So as we've been thinking and talking about this, I've been thinking of some ways and some things that maybe these dealerships and OEMs could do to kind of prevent this in the future, because clearly they're not going anywhere. The more technologically sound these vehicles are becoming, I think recalls are going to continue to be more prevalent, but hopefully with it being more of a computer controlling the car, it could just be more about like doing a system update or some sort of like refresh instead of like major parts of the vehicle requiring these recalls. But what do you think, Philip, about, since so many of our vehicles are connected, for recall notices to be sent out through the car instead of, ensuring that consumers are getting things via like a mailer or an email? Like, let the cars tell you, hey, you have a recall, and like shut it down. Like, don't even let you drive it almost. What do you think about
But
that?
here's my problem. Here's my problem, because this just happened to me and I'm annoyed about it.
Ooh.
So I go through my whole thing. I pick up my vehicle. I drive it back home. Cool. Right. We all know it was 111 days where I was waiting on this to come back. So I'm pumped. I get back in the car. I turn it on and it's like recall for your vehicle on the screen. And then it flashes away. Now, Danielle, it did not tell me what the recall was. It didn't tell me if it had been fixed. It just said recall. And I'm like, what? And then the screen flashed and it hasn't come back. So now I'm living in a state of paralysis.
That's
Right?
terrifying.
If you're, it's terrifying. Is there a recall? Right? Am I letting my 7-year-old drive this dangerous car down the road? No, it's just a joke. I don't let my 7-year-old drive, but I do drive them around in this.
Yeah.
He's all, yeah, he's in the car. The question for me is, if we roll that out, who is regulating the way that these recalls come out? Because I don't want that to happen again. Like, I have no idea, and that causes me extra work. I do like the idea of putting it in your face every time you turn it on, just like when you need to have your oil changed, puts it in your face so that you don't run past it, which is why when I see people in their BMWs, usually with white smoke coming out of their tailpipe because they haven't changed their oil in a long time, I'm like, I know there's a warning that's gone off that said, hey, your oil is overdue. You're just choosing to ruin this engine, right? So it has the intended effect, word salad brain over here, that we need it to have. It just has to be clean, because it is so much more impactful than an oil change alert. Like, I'm not feeling like there's a recall on my car and the front tire is going to fall off. Like, I should just keep riding that down the road. But I also have to have the information right now. So I like it. I just want it to be better, because my personal experience says, you got a recall, see you later. And I'm like, no. What's happening? Tell me the things I need to do. So if it's clean, I want to know about it and I want it to happen.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to ensure that if it is going to flash a recall sign, it stays there. It gives you a call to action, like recall on your engine, get to shop immediately. You have point
Yeah.
0.8 miles before the car blows up, something like that. I need it to be
Yeah.
clear. And then,
Yeah.
Philip, were you aware that as of today, it is currently legal in most states to sell a vehicle with an open recall.
I was not aware of that.
So
That is terrifying.
we should change the law. If you know, they should put us in charge, and then they should make it that every vehicle sold cannot have an open recall. So
Ooh.
right now, that's not the case, and there is no policy in place for this. So this would remove millions of unrepaired open recall vehicles from the circulation, and that would immediately help things. But that's not the case.
Yes, that is not the case. That is crazy to hear because I will say a lot of the dealers that I walk into and train on software, they have vehicles that they can't sell because they're under a recall. So I've seen that, and it might just be that it's regulated by that dealership owning body or maybe by the OEM that you can't sell it because obviously, like you said, it's not state mandatory, state mandated. And that is something that I'm truly shocked by because some of these recalls, like you've got the Ford Ranger, which has a side curtain airbag recall. You got a Kia Niro that has an airbag recall. Takata airbags are always being recalled. You have Tesla with side curtain airbags, and these things are like major issues. Like a lot of people can get really hurt. You might remember, you're probably not old enough for this, but back in the 90s, the Ford Explorer had the rollover risk when the tire would explode, and Bridgestone had to recall all those tires. I'm just saying, you got the good hair. When you get like me, this is how you can tell you're old. Your hair runs away. And it's like those recalls, they killed people. They caused a lot of issues. Same thing with these. It should be state mandated, my opinion, right? Federal and state to say, hey, this is unsafe for people to transport around. But by that same token, little devil's advocate, sometimes you see those beaters driving around on the road. And you're like, that should not be allowed to get registered by any stretch of the imagination. You know, where you can see the rust is so bad, you like see through it. You're like, oh, I don't know what's holding this car together, but they're still on the road. So I appreciate the recall angle and making it a mandate, but how do you ensure safety on all of the roads with all of the different options that are out there? So a lot to deal with.
A lot. And do you think the person that should be at fault when an accident occurs and a recall is present, do you think it should be the consumer who's driving the vehicle that's recalled? Do you think it should be the dealer who sold them the vehicle that's recalled? Do you think it should be the OEM that has the vehicle that is a recall? Because ultimately, I see a lot of instances where somebody is unaware that they have an open
Mhm.
recall on their car. And then if they get into an accident and they seriously hurt other people, it just seems like, with my insurance family background, it just seems like a whole lot of negligence and liability, and I just feel like everybody's at fault. But who do you think is ultimately at fault when a recall occurs and there's death involved?
I think if you've been notified as um, a consumer and there's like a way to guarantee that you receive that, you're at fault. If you chose to operate a vehicle in an unsafe manner, you're at fault, right? Like, no matter what happens, if you're looking at an accident report or you're in an accident, even if you rear end somebody and you hit your brakes and you slid on ice, they're going to give you a ticket for following too closely, even if you did everything to avoid that. So I can't imagine in this instance where you did not do everything that you wouldn't be held liable. I think it's that's the big thing. Were you notified? Did they give you options for what to do? Where you find these OEMs getting in trouble is they waited too long to notify people. There are enough reports that came in that said, hey, you should fix this. And then they didn't do anything. I think everybody has a piece where they can be held liable. And I think if you're the OEM, you need to notify and give people options to get out of that vehicle. I think if you're the participant who's driving the vehicle, you are made aware of it, you're held responsible. You get into that accident, it's on you. And, it is kind of scary. It's a gray area, but me personally, I check these things on a regular basis. And if you're curious about how you can find out, take your VIN to the NHTSA website, run your VIN. They'll tell you. You can check with your OEM manufacturer. They will tell you. You can put it in to Carfax, and it'll tell you if there's an open recall on your vehicle. So there's plenty of places you can go to see. So there's not really an excuse for the consumer to not know. And you can't really blame it on anybody else unless it's something that has not gone through the official channels for a recall yet.
Totally. I'm in full
Yeah.
agreement and alignment with you on that one. I think it's just a good practice. Like you said, check your license plate and check your vehicle often, your VIN, to see if there's an open recall. Something else that I do, I don't know if you do this, Philip, but I live in a city where I do a lot of street parking and parallel parking. I'm always checking my license plate to see if I have a ticket, see if I have some sort of traffic violation, just out of a habit. because it's the worst if you just don't know and then they keep adding up and then you get into situations where you have to pay a lot more than you would have needed to. So I think that's really good
Yeah.
advice you gave, just to ensure that everybody is just staying up to date with their vehicles. But I
Yep.
don't know, if you learned a little something while listening to us today. I mean, we dove into Amazon and Ford and all the cool ways that you can buy a CPO through Amazon. Check that out. And then if this episode did anything for you, maybe it caused you to just look up and make sure that you don't have a recall on your vehicle. Go ahead and check
Hmm.
that and keep us posted. Drop in the comments if you've ever had a vehicle that's been recalled before. We want to hear all the stories and we'll get into it. But until then, make sure you like and subscribe. And we're doing some big things here. We're starting to gain some traction, and we can only grow if you guys keep supporting us and share this podcast with somebody you know would love to hear it. Thanks again, and bye.
Bye.
Bye.